Have you ever wondered what it's like to start a tech company in the dot-com bubble of the late 1990s, to navigate the challenges of building a company through events like 9/11 and the housing crash of 2008, to close a multi-million-dollar deal with a global tech giant? My guest today, Jack Ades, started from humble beginnings. Jack was working at his father's retail stores while sending out countless resumes trying to land a computer science job. He ended up founding AKA Enterprise Solutions, a software company that partnered with Microsoft. Jack's company would install and customize software tailored to the specific needs of businesses. His company would go on to bring in tens of millions of dollars annually before a successful acquisition. I'm Victor Braca, and Momentum is where I dive deep with exceptional leaders to uncover the key decisions, defining moments, and lessons that propelled them to success, and how those insights can inspire your journey forward. In this episode, Jack explains some technical aspects of his software company, but he also zooms out and touches on navigating the dot-com bubble, closing $10 million deals, and negotiating a company acquisition during the height of COVID. Jack also opens up about sacrificing personal milestones for success and talking about missing weddings, parties, family events. He speaks on the hardest decisions he had to make as a leader and the single most valuable piece of advice he believes every young professional needs to hear. If you're interested in tech, or better yet, if the idea of building a company in a field that you love and then selling it for, let's just say, a life-changing amount sounds intriguing to you, stick around. Enjoy. Jack Ades, welcome to Momentum.
Thank you, Victor.
Very
Good to be
excited
here.
to have
Thank
you. Great of you to be here. Thank you so much. And there's a lot to unpack in terms of, business advice you might have, community involvement. I'm very excited. So let's get into it.
We'll talk about whatever you want.
All right, cool. So take me back to your early life. What was life like for you growing up? Were you always business-minded? Were you always entrepreneurial? Did that develop later on? Tell me about that.
So my father would tell me, because my father was in retail, S&A stores. He owned 10 or 15 stores at the time. And he would tell me from an early age, I remember like 7th, 8th grade, he'd say, you got to have your own company. You got to own your own company. You've got to be your own boss. And this is the 70s, right? So this is like, at the time, starting a company was a lot different than it is today. But his thing was you got to have your own company. I don't know if I'd give everyone that advice today.
Right.
Everyone has their own journey, and it's more difficult to start a company these days. But I had it in my mind that was going to happen. It just did. And then when I went to college, I could have studied law. I could have studied different things. But what I was really attracted to, drawn to, was math and science. And at the time, computer science was very early in its stage from where it's at now. And I could explain where we were at. But I was drawn to that. And I eventually went for computer engineering. I went to GW engineering school. And I studied computer engineering. And that was, to me, a great, future business, great place to go. At the time, like I said, it was early days of computers. Personal computers were not even in businesses at that point. They're not business machines until the mid-'80s. They became more business machines. So I was learning very, very early on. I knew it was a great future. And then I knew that I wanted to start my own business in that area at some point.
Nice. When did you realize that you wanted to start a business in computers and software?
I was, I originally, we thought the big thing in the 70s was solar energy. That's what I actually started out saying, okay, I'll start a solar energy company. That'd be great, great business, great money to be made there. And then my sophomore year of college, I was doing an internship at Fort Monmouth. I went to Shore Regional High School, public school. And Fort Monmouth had this program for math and science people to go work in their labs. And I was working in the computer lab at Fort Monmouth. And I got very involved in the programming, and I thought this is a great field. And so when I was a sophomore in college, I switched from mechanical engineering, which is where the solar energy program was, to computer engineering and computers. So it's really computer science and electrical engineering combined. That was what the degree was. And so from then on, I said, look, I love software. I love doing development. And I said, yeah, I'm going to do something in computer science. Not sure what it's going to be, but I will do something in that field.
You got into the software tech industry pretty young, pretty early. Yeah, go on.
Right. So literally they were not using personal computers in businesses at all. It wasn't until IBM started making these machines that were real business ready. IBM came up with these hard drives on the machine, and then finally was ready to be in an office.
Right.
But they didn't have many programs to use on it. They had Lotus 123, and before that was something called VisiCalc. So they had spreadsheet programs, but they didn't have real business programs. And so when I was, so what happened was I graduated, couldn't find a job in computer science for a year. And this is a typical thing, by the way. So one of my lessons or pieces of advice for people, if they go to college, which is not necessarily for everyone, if you go to college and you have a major that you feel like is something you can get a job in that major, companies come to recruit you from college, and I would recommend going through that process, because when companies are there to recruit you, you interview, you just practice your interview skills, get as many offers as you can possibly get, and see which job you want to take.
Right.
Because when you go out and you're sending out resumes, it's really hard to get a job. I know people who are graduating with high honors computer science degrees can't get a job.
Interesting.
And it's really tough. It's really tough to get one.
You're saying people should go through the recruitment process in the college.
I think it's the best way to do it, because when you start sending out resumes, first of all, companies don't want to train you generally. They don't want, if they're going to colleges to recruit, then they know they're getting people out of school. They know that they can train you. They have a training program. Most companies do not have training programs. So in the computer science field, they want people with at least a couple years experience, unless they have some sort of training program, which is very rare. So now you're sending out resumes to all these companies, and no one's looking at them. And it's very frustrating. I was doing it for about a year. So I was working in my father's store at the time. So my father's stores are S&A stores and Easy Pickens. So I was working at Easy Pickens as a manager on 34th Street for a year.
These are retail stores?
Retail stores. So I'm at the register. I'm putting clothes out. I'm trying to get my first computer science job. So for a year I was doing it. It was fun. I was making money and I was learning, but it was not what I wanted to do. And in fact, I did some programming for their office. They wanted some inventory programming and stuff. So I did some light programming for them as well while I was working in the stores. And then it wasn't until a cousin of mine who knew a recruiter finally helped me to get a job. A recruiter who, like I said, my cousin connected me up, and I wound up getting a job a couple months later, and I got into the field. So I was doing my first job. I was really happy. I was doing development work and networking. Also very early days for networking.
Right.
Networking was pretty much Novell was the one networking company, and Microsoft was doing this Windows NT thing, and they were starting to get into it. But I learned all about how to network the computers. I learned how to develop on the network. And so after about a year at this company, a year and a half at this company, it was called Mercantile Stores. It was a department store chain, and I was in their MIS department, which was their computer department. I met a guy through my cousin, and it was a mutual friend. It was a friend. Yeah, she introduced me to her friend who was also in the computer field, which was a small field, and he was selling real estate management software.
Sure.
And so he was a salesman. I didn't consider myself really a good salesman or marketing person. I just considered myself a techie.
Right.
And so we wound up meeting and talking about what we would do as a business. And I said, yeah, I can develop software. I can custom develop for any company. If they tell me what they need, I'll custom develop software for them. And he said, why would we do that? There's already programs out there that can do most of the work that you would want them to, that they want to automate, and then you can customize it for them specifically, but at least 80% of it's done through the program.
Right.
So that's a great idea. How do I find out what products are out there? So I bought PC magazines. I looked for what's the best business software. And at the time, it was called accounting software. So there were 5 or 6 top programs out there: AIPAC and Mass 90 and Platinum, and there's like I said, 6 or 7. And they're rating them all, and I wound up getting these demo software so I can see what they look like.
Right.
At the time, they were all on diskettes. You'd put a diskette in the machine and run it off the diskette, and we found a program that we thought was a good program. We thought it was a good partner program called Platinum. And so we said, all right, what we'll do is we'll sell this Platinum software, and we'll sell it to companies, say, hey, this will automate all your inventory and your sales and your purchase orders and everything you need, and we'll customize reports for you. And that became our business.
Nice. So I want to go back a little bit. How did you have that vision when you were in college, that like seeing how technology was going to erupt and you wanted to go into that field? Because most people didn't.
I think, yeah, like I said, I knew I'm always a futurist. I'm always thinking 20 years ahead, always. To me, and I'm not sure if I'm going to change it, but as I get older, but to me, change doesn't occur fast enough. I'm waiting for the flying cars. I've been waiting for AI forever.
Right.
Now it's great. I'm amazed by it, but still not near where it needs to be.
Right.
And so at the time, I said, yeah, I know that's going to be the future. Is going to be technology, software development. I knew it was going to be a major thing, and I
Nice.
knew that computing power was expanding, and we didn't know it at the time. Now there's a Moore's law, which I think that one of the CEOs of Intel
Exponentially
said
expands,
that
right.
every 18 months, computer power doubles.
Right.
And I knew we were right in the middle of that, and I saw it happening, and I was and we always were trying to push the boundaries, because as soon as we started putting these programs in for companies, we would see where the shortfalls were. We saw where they needed to improve.
Yeah.
And so I was waiting for them to improve, as much as possible. But yeah, I knew in college that I wanted to be in software. I knew I wanted to be in tech and drive progress, drive innovation. Well, innovation is always something that excited me.
Nice. So going forward to your early days at the company, you're selling this software, and how did you set yourself apart in the beginning? Was it easy because you were a new company in a new field, or how did that look for you?
So the biggest competition for our software package and what we proposed to do, which was install the software package on a PC network and get it running for all your users and connect to the printer and print out all your checks and do all the automation. The biggest competition was like a Unix-based machine. This was like so green screens on mini computers was really what other companies were selling.
And what does that mean?
So it was a centralized computer.
Sure.
And it was called a dumb terminal. It was a green screen terminal, and you're typing out commands on a terminal, and it's Unix commands.
Okay.
Unix was an old language that was a big business language at the time. And so companies would say, yeah, you buy an IBM mini computer for $50,000, you buy the software on top of that, and then we'll program it for you.
Okay.
And I said, no, this PC network is where it's going. And I had to convince people early on. They said, are you sure that's where it's going? You're going to put these PCs on people's desks and you connect them to a network, and they're all going to be like regular computers on each desk, not one central computer with terminals? I said, that's what's going to happen. You're going to have a computer on every desk. They're going to be networked together. You can communicate with each other, run all the same software. That's the vision for the future.
Which is how it still is today.
Which is exactly what's happening today.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you're selling the software, and that's what set you apart from the competition. That was a new business model at the time, right?
Brand new software. This Platinum software was on version 3. It was running on DOS, which was an old operating system for Microsoft.
Mhm.
Microsoft didn't come out with Windows until the late 80s, and even when they first came out with it, it was very clunky. And then Windows became the operating system, and then
Right.
we wanted to have products that ran on Windows. Platinum wasn't working great for us. It wasn't a great partner for us. We had a problem with them, so we went and did another search for another, for what was same 5 or 6 companies that were out there, but who improved over a few years. And Great Plains Software was the one that we chose. Great Plains Software was running on Windows. They had the best vision for running optimized on network. They eventually had SQL Server as their backbone. And so Great Plains Software was the one that we really grew very well with.
And what does that mean to partner with Great Plains Software? What is the arrangement?
Good question. So every software company is pretty much they're told by all the analysts that they need to be selling directly to customers.
Okay.
You need to sell directly. But what happened was, if you were smart in the early days, you had a partner network. You had companies that would get trained on your software. They would be the experts. They would even get really good in certain niche markets. Like I could talk more about that. But they sell through partners. So pretty much what would happen is you'd sell the software. It was a license for the software. It wasn't cloud-based, which is what we have today. Well, you'd buy licenses. Let's say it was $1,000 per module. You get 6 modules: accounts receivable, general ledger, accounts payable, purchase orders. These are all different modules, and you'd pay for the modules, and the partner would get 50%, and Great Plains, who was the software developer, would get 50%.
Got it.
And that was the software arrangement, which was great because you sell a nice deal, you got good license revenue right up front, and then you sell the consulting services. You do the consulting for that company to optimize that product for their company.
So you're putting in Great Plains' software, and you're setting it up in offices and spaces and things like that?
Exactly right, and customizing it. I learned the development language for the software, and I would customize it for them, develop reports, develop add-ons to their modules that would help them to track more information, different type of information, and I would do the support for it. People would call me. The first many years, I was doing all the work. I was doing all the training. I was doing all the support, and my partner would do the selling and marketing.
Got it. So taking back to those early years, a lot of people, when they picture starting a company, they see late nights, working on weekends, skipping parties. So was that what it looked like for you?
Exactly what it was like. And it's funny because I was just talking to my son Dylan, who is now working a consulting job, and he's like, it's really grueling. I mean, it's billing 40 hours and then working extra the time that you're not billing. And he said also though, but once you get into the flow, it's amazing. Like so he said, yeah, obviously when you were building your company, you were working a lot of hours. I said, yeah, I was working exactly 7 days a week, lots of times, late hours, right, skipping parties, skipping some major things that I could have been at. There was a friend's wedding in Canada, and I could not go because there was an order that had to get done by Monday, and I had to work over the weekend to get it done.
Oh, wow.
We got all the computers shipped to me. I had to configure all the computers. I had to get all the wiring ready. It had to ship out on Monday, and I couldn't go. And I was like, I really, like, and my wife Debbie's saying, look, you got to go. This is the most important thing. You're going to really love the wedding. I'm telling you, it's a great thing to go to. And I said, I know I'm going to love it. I know I'd like to go there, but I just can't do it.
Damn.
And so you had to make sacrifices, and you're doing everything. You're mailing, you're shipping things out. You're going to FedEx or UPS and doing the shipping yourself. You're buying stamps for to send out invoices to be paid. You're doing everything, and but it was also very satisfying. And my father told me early on in life, when you realize how hard you can work, that you can put in the time, that's when you become empowered to know that you can make money. When you know that you can do the work, you know that you're going to make money in life.
Nice. Yeah, when you have the confidence that you're able to do it, then you know you can execute. Right. So you're running this company for how long? Tell me about how long you're running the company for.
All right. So we started in 1989. It was right before my 25th birthday. We incorporated, and I had a partner that, again, we were in the office together doing all the stuff. He was doing all the selling, and I was doing all the implementing, all the. So from 1989 to about 1993, we were doing this platinum software. We were also selling real estate management software at the same time. There was another company that we were doing real estate management software. By around 1995, 96, we had switched over to Great Plains software, and I was really energized by this company. It was by the time we were in 1994, 95, maybe we were 5 employees. So one of the biggest things when you're in the early years is you can't hire anyone because you don't make enough money to hire anyone.
Right.
So you're doing everything. And I remember my parents saying, hey, you're working crazy hours. Why don't you hire someone? I said, I can't afford it right now. Can't afford to hire anyone. And so that's one stage when you're just doing everything, and then you finally realize, okay, I can take a gamble now and hire someone. It'll help me make more money. I know it's going to be a lot out of our pocket first, but let's figure it out. So I hired our first employee. We had 3, so it was 3 of us from 1993 to 1995, whatever, 3. And then we added another one. So by the time we were in 95, 96, maybe we're 5 employees. And that's after 6, 7 years, right? That's a long time. But the time flies by, and you're just trying to make a buck, and you're getting there, and you're building your reputation. And so I would say the early days are about as much as you can do, as much as you can take on yourself, you do. When you should probably hire someone earlier than you think you can, because you'll be able to afford it. Because once you bring that person in, you'll be more productive, and you'll be able to pay for that employee. Same thing with the next employees. But it was also, you had to pay someone, you got to hire someone pretty much entry level, because you couldn't afford someone who's really smart at the time, really who would afford a bigger salary. So now you're hiring someone out of college, train them on what to do. Those are the early years. When by the time 1998 was when I bought out my original partner.
Okay.
We didn't have the same vision. We didn't have the same goals. I wanted to expand, and he was very risk averse.
Right.
And we just had by the time we were in 97, 98, we were fighting all the time about things, and I was just very, very frustrated. So I said, look, I'm going to buy you out, or if you want to buy me out, you let me know. But I think I need to buy you out. That's the way it's going to go, and that's the way it happened. It was a little tough, and I had to pay more than I expected. And so whatever, another business lesson: you always think your company is more valuable than the buyer does, always.
Right.
So.
Even when you're both part of the company.
Right. So I was like, it's not worth that much, and he says, worth much more. We had to get someone actually to mediate for us. We had a mutual acquaintance that was in the business world for a long time. He's guy was in his 60s, very successful businessman, and he mediated for us.
Interesting.
He got the deal done, and I paid a lot of money. I got a lot of debt for it, but I knew it was going to be worth it in the end.
Right.
A couple months later, I had a business associate that I met through the Great Plains Partnership, and we were exactly on the same page. And we knew that we'd be great partners together. He had a business that was doing the same thing. I had, and we said, look, we're both in New York. We're both driven. We both know exactly what we need to do. Let's join our companies together. So we merged companies in 1998, and that's when things really started to take off for us.
Nice.
We grew very, very nicely after that. We had ups and downs. In the 2000 crash, there was what we called the tech wreck in the year 2000. Y2K was a big thing. Everyone was spending money to get to the. What happened was in the early days of computers, it was all about you had to take as little storage as possible because storage costs money.
Right.
So every date field had two digits for the year.
Right.
So they stored everything in 2 digits, and then when we went to 2000, you had to go to 4 digits because you had to be able to go beyond that. And everyone thought and a lot of the products were not meant to be 4 digits, and so everyone thought that the computers were going to crash in 2000. So everyone's spending money to get their computer programs up to date. So it was great for us. We were making a lot of money, selling a lot of systems.
That's cool.
But then when Y2K hit, everyone stopped spending. And so it was called the tech wreck. So all the tech companies had disastrous years, 2000, double bubble burst. And then you had 9/11, 2001. Also, people stopped spending money on tech for 9-10 months. And those are very difficult years. So then you had to cut back. You had all the people that you hired and you were expanding. Now you had to cut back. You had to fire people. You had to cut salaries. It was really, you go through these things as a business owner, which is the hardest thing.
How do you deal with that? How do you detach your emotion from it and think logically?
Very difficult. I still say, as a businessman, firing someone is the hardest thing you can do as a business owner.
Oh,
very
wow.
hard.
Wow. Yeah.
But you have to realize it's in their interests, it's in the business interests to move on. You can't. So let's say you have 15 people and you have to fire 4 of them, which is where we're at that point. You owe it to the 11 people who are going to stay. You have to fire those 4 people. And those 4 people were not as productive as they could have been, because usually you're not firing great people. You're firing the least productive. So they're not in their best line of work either. They deserve to find another line of work that's better for them, that suits them better.
I like the way you put it.
You have to, in your mind, say, look, you're doing it for the good of everyone here. You have to let people move on in the case where they're not as productive as they could be, and you have to save the company for the 11 people who are remaining, or whatever the numbers are. That's the mindset that you have to go through while you're doing it.
Right. So Y2K, what'd you call it? The tech crash?
The tech wreck was
tech wreck
in 2000, and then 9/11 was also a very difficult time for tech. Afterwards, I don't think we sold a new system for 10 months.
Oh wow.
After 9/11.
So what did you do?
We had our existing customer base. We serviced the customers we had. Great Plains actually helped us out a lot. They helped us with cash flow. It was really amazing. We applied for a small business, an SBA loan.
Sure.
There were specific loans that SBA was giving for the 9/11.
Small Business Administration?
Yeah, Small Business Administration was giving special loans based on 9/11. If you were based in New York and your business was suffering because of 9/11, and I think they gave us like $400,000 something. It was amazing. Like we signed for the loan. I was thrilled.
That was great.
And so yeah, you cut back salary, you do everything you can to keep things going, and you just have to have faith that in the end you're going to get to the right place.
Right. And how did that feel with, you had a family at that point, you had kids, I'm assuming?
No kids.
And
Shiva bills.
you had Shiva bills to pay, medical bills.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
I was very financially anxious for many, many years.
Right.
And the thing with tech, and I'll say again, advice to people out there, it's the story of someone in tech who makes big money in 3-4 years. It's very, very rare. It's extremely rare. And everyone wants that. In fact, someone told me in Israel at the time, because Israel had all these great startup stories. Everyone in Israel wants to start a company and sell it in 3 years and make it, and
Make 200 million.
Yeah,
right.
exactly right. Very, very low odds for that. It's a very low probability situation. What's very more likely is you're building a company slowly, and the problem with tech is you're always investing back into the company because you have to learn all the newest things.
You got to catch up with the innovation.
You got to catch up with innovation. You got to keep up with innovation, and then you got to hire the best people.
Right.
So now, fast forward, let's say 10, 15 years while I'm into this, whereas my advice was you got to do everything. You got to hire people entry level, pay them as low as you can to build the business. Now, once you get to higher level and you're dealing with better customers, higher level customers and bigger deals, you have to have the best people on your team. So now you're paying more money to get the best people on your team.
Right.
And you want to hire people who are better than you. So I was doing everything, and I was the best. I was the best installer, I was the best trainer, I was the best developer, best support person. But if I'm going to hire people who are less than I am, then I'm never going to get out of those roles. So more and more you start saying, okay, who's the best at this? I need someone who's the best, for example, project manager. Because I was a great project manager. I was implementing these systems, and we had great customer satisfaction. But there are people who are trained at it better than I am, and have done it for years for bigger companies. Hire that person. Then hire someone who can. Then I was running the practice. I was running all the developers report to me, all the installers report to me, everyone report to me. So I had to hire someone who could do that better than I did.
Right.
And so pretty much you're hiring mid-level management that is better at each of the individual tasks than I could have been. And then that's how I grow. Now I'm taking myself out of the day-to-day of the business, and I can focus on the strategy of the business and building it and going, what vertical markets should we be approaching? What's our marketing strategy going to be
Right.
for the next 10 years? What are the top hires that we have to do to get to the next level? And so that's what I was doing more. I was doing more of the visioning, and that became my style. I think that I learned that from the Great Plains. By the way, so side story, Great Plains Software, which is an excellent company to work with, was the CEO and president was Doug Burgum.
Oh, ran for president.
Yes, exactly right. So Doug Burgum is if I have to pick one mentor, he's my mentor. We just learned how to run our business based on the way Great Plains ran their business, which was amazingly run. It was a fantastic company, and they had their own story that people couldn't, like people who were part of it couldn't believe what was happening. They were growing tremendously. They had great leadership, great vision, great execution, and we were a New York company, and New York in the 80s and 90s was like cutthroat business. You had to make a dollar, you had to do whatever you could to make a buck. Customer service wasn't your top priority. You just wanted to make sure they were paying you. But they showed us that if you focus obsessively on your employees and customers, you're going to build a great business. And they showed us how to do it. And so we really absorbed a lot of those lessons, and we became a model for a New York company that was using this great visionary Midwestern company approach, which was very different than New York. It was a very different way of running a company in New York, but we were able to do that. And I think that's one of the things that I was most proud of, was to bring this sort of corporate culture into a New York environment, which was not focused on employee satisfaction and excellence. It was more focused on making money and doing the best you could to make money.
Right.
So now Doug Burgum later on, so Microsoft bought Great Plains Software in 2000. So starting from 2000, we were no longer a Great Plains partner, we were a Microsoft partner.
Got it.
And that got us much more involved in a lot of the Microsoft technology, which helped us to grow the company as well. Doug Burgum left after 7 years. He left in 2007, wound up doing real estate and investment in Fargo, North Dakota, which he felt could be brought up as a city, could be built up much more than it was, which he did help to make that happen. And then in 2016, we always thought he could go into politics, and he addressed that at some point, whether he would or not. But in 2007, when he left, that wasn't an area for him to go in. But in 2016, the governorship became available. There was someone who was leaving the governor's office. There was an heir apparent from the Republican Party, the state attorney general, whose family had been in politics for very long, and they thought he was going to get the nomination. Doug was the upstart, unknown candidate,
Right.
businessman, barnstormed through the whole state, and he was, I think, 20 points behind the polls when he started, and he won the primary by like 15% or something like that. Like, he just rocked in the primary. So he became a two-term governor, excellent governor, ran the state beautifully. Same way you approach business. Vision, make sure you have the vision. Make sure you have the best people on your team to execute the vision. Look at the big picture all the time. Don't be in the day-to-day as much as you can. You do the things that you need to do, prioritize, and let your team do most of the heavy lifting.
Right.
And then he ran for president, and he was this close to being the VP nominee for Trump.
Oh, yeah?
Really close.
Really?
Like, he was like a week before Trump made the selection for J.D. Vance, he told his sons, and this is like from an article that I read that was very well researched, he told his sons, I'm leaning toward Doug Burgum. And they steered him away. They said, look, he's not going to add anything to your campaign. J.D. Vance is the guy. You got to go with J.D. Vance. And I was like praying for Doug to get it, because if he made it, I was going to start working for him. I was going to work on his campaign and whatever it was. Like, I sent him a text, Doug, I'm running, I'm helping you if you get this nomination. And because we became friends over the years, we became acquaintances and friends, and texting each other. And anyway, so that's the backstory with Doug Burgum and my tech life. And
I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. If you are, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. If you're not, leave a dislike. But really, if you're enjoying the episode, please share it with somebody who could use a little bit of inspiration. We're trying to grow the podcast as big as possible. Anything you could do to help with that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Let's get back to it. You mentioned hiring out and delegating, and that freeing up some of your time to focus on the vision. I'm wondering, when you hire out, when you delegate, do you really find that there's more time to focus on the vision, or are you finding that you have to manage these extra people and you have to do administrative work and things like that?
If you focus every day on the fact that you will not be in the day-to-day of the business, then it happens. Eventually, if that's your intention, and that's in the back of your mind at all times, then you're going to look at other areas where you can hire the best people. So I made a hire in 2014. I was looking for someone who would be an HR manager and a recruiter, because I was still doing all the hiring.
Sure.
And I was managing everyone. And I found the perfect person that I hired. She was a great recruiter and a great HR manager. She had the master's degree in labor management, and of course, it's the same thing. Someone who's much better than I could possibly be at that role. Much better recruiter than I was, much better HR manager. And then she grew into that role where she now created a recruiting team, and she became the top HR manager. And just right there, you're saying, I'm not managing people anymore. She's managing everyone in the company.
Right.
So now, the answer, my style has been, and it's not for everyone, and not a lot of people can get there. You got to have a lot of holes in your calendar. You got to, if you have meetings scheduled from morning to evening, then you're not delegating enough to people. You're not doing enough delegating. Private equity firms want you to work 60, 70 hours a week if you're CEO. They think that that's the best way to get the growth. That's not my style. My style was have holes in the calendar. I was a member of this group called Vistage. Vistage is a business networking company. You have 10 to 15 people in your Vistage group. Every month you meet for a full day, and you talk about issues, you talk about best practices, you have speakers come in to talk about all different things. And if you could not take off that one day in a month, then you weren't being the right type of CEO. If you were there and you were doing all the work, you were like multitasking during while the person was speaking, while there was a speaker, and you're multitasking and you're doing work at the same time, you are not clearing enough time in your calendar to vision, to look at the big picture, to be strategic.
Got it. So you partner up with Microsoft after they acquired Great Plains. What do things look like from there?
Well, they had, first of all, we always were, whoever the leader was from Microsoft, we were always we were always networking with that leader and their team. That was like a main thing for us. So we'd go to these. We went to 3 or 4 conferences a year. When it was Great Plains, and then it was Microsoft.
Got it.
So Doug is the running the what was Great Plains now became Microsoft Business Solutions. Doug ran that for 7 years. So being very involved with Doug and his team, going to the conferences, being part of the culture there, that was always our mission, was to get in as much as possible. When you partnered with them really closely, you got in with the engineering team. So if you had problems with the software, you knew who to call to fix software problems. Or if you're with the customer support team and very in tune with them. So when there are escalations, you know who to deal with. An escalation is what you don't want. As a partner, you don't want a customer calling Microsoft and saying, my partner stinks.
Got it.
They're doing a horrible job. You avoid that at all costs.
Right.
So when something needs to escalate, we'll get Microsoft involved early. You don't have to call. We have the best relationships, and so when you're totally involved in networking with that team, you know who to call when those things happen. You get sales leads. If you get the right people, you want leads. The leads is the best thing. I mean, that's the golden thing if you get leads. So you're always trying to find the right individual or individuals who can get you the leads. And so Doug is doing it for 7 years. Then Satya Nadella actually became the head of that group. Doug handed off to Satya, and Satya talks about Doug being his mentor as well. So Satya Nadella was running the business solutions for about a year, maybe less. And then Steve Ballmer was the CEO at the time. And then Steve Ballmer put Satya in charge of Bing search. They needed search to be better. So Satya ran that team. And then a guy named Kirill Tatarinov took over leading the Microsoft Business Solutions team. So now he ran it for 8-9 years. And again, you want to be as close to these people as possible. So we became very close with Kirill as well. The problem with Microsoft at the time was Steve Ballmer was not really strong, I don't think, as a leader for Microsoft. The thing that he did well was build the data centers. Bill Gates was on him all the time saying, you got to build data centers. And Kirill tells a story that Steve Ballmer said, I just got it. I understand. There are going to be 4 or 5 companies in the world that have all the data centers, and we need to be one of them. And that is actually what occurred. Now you've got Google, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, maybe I don't know, maybe a 5th
Google,
one.
Apple, Microsoft.
Yeah, but that's where they're at. Besides that, Steve Ballmer was not a very good CEO.
Meta.
Yes, Meta, exactly right. That's the 5th one, right? Besides that, he was not a great leader. He just was not the typical innovator, and he almost lost the company, I feel. He was touting to the media, yeah, Apple, sure, they're growing, but we still have 90% of the operating systems in every company.
Right.
And that was going to turn in a year. That could have turned, and it almost did. Windows almost destroyed the company. They had a horrible. Windows was very buggy at the time, and they were losing market share tremendously. And Microsoft was stagnating, and then that's when Satya took over as the CEO of Microsoft. And I knew when Satya took over that he was going to be the true visionary. He's going to take it to the next level, and he has. He's done brilliantly at that level. So now we were on the ups and downs with Microsoft during the late 2000s and the early teens. Investment in the business solutions was choppy. Sometimes they would grow, sometimes it would stagnate, and it was not a great business to be in. At one point, we thought we got to get out of the business because ERP. So I know I'm going all over the place, but what happened was this accounting software evolved into what we now call ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning. If you've heard of SAP and Oracle, and Microsoft's product now competes with them. It's called Dynamics 365 is the product. But it used to be accounting software, small businesses on individual machines. Then it became ERP software, which is a much higher level software product. And there was also CRM, if you've heard of Salesforce, CRM, Customer Relationship Management. So
HubSpot, Salesforce.
Right, exactly right. So Dynamics 365 has their own CRM software, which is the main competitor to Salesforce. So it became much higher level software. It became enterprise level software, and we were selling, instead of selling deals for 100,000, we were selling deals for $1 million.
Right.
Now our deals are $5 and $10 million in some cases. Huge deals, all Microsoft technology. And it took a while for Microsoft to get there. Their investment in that area was very slow and uncertain, and there were times when we thought we were not going to be able to get to the next level.
Right.
And then finally, in the late teens, 2017, 2018, we saw some really good growth there in both CRM and ERP. And our company started to really grow much more rapidly. Still hard to put you're still investing the profits back in the company.
Right.
So you're not getting rich off of this tech company. It's not the tech companies. The real growth strategy is to stay in business, grow as much as you can, try to be as profitable as you can, reinvest, and then you have to at some point take investment or sell. That's really where you make the money in tech.
Right.
It's not going to be. And we have a lot of these businesses in the community that are retail, wholesale. They're generating cash, and you can make a decent living off it and put some money away. Tech, much harder to do that.
Right.
Eventually, you have to get private equity investment, exit, sell to a strategic competitor or company that's out there, and that's where you're going to make the money. So
tell me about the journey of selling your company. Was that a tiresome, long process? How was that for you?
So I'm blessed with having the best partner I could possibly have. Together, I think we work amazingly together. He was mostly sales and marketing, selling, building the sales organization, and I was running mostly all the other things, which sounds like, oh, well, I'm doing more work. No, but selling is, if you can sell, you're in business. So
right.
They say sales solves all problems. That's, to me, is still very important adage. And so we went through ups and downs for sure. Then what happened was in 2012, we did an acquisition. It was our first acquisition, and it was handed to us on a silver platter. It was a company that was doing the high-end ERP software implementations. It was doing what was called Exapta. It was a high-level ERP product, and we were having a hard time breaking into that area.
Sure.
We were selling bigger deals. Still, Great Plains was still the product that we were selling in 2012. 85% of our business was still selling that Great Plains product.
Right.
Yeah, we were selling for larger companies, but really to get to the much larger companies, you had to sell this product called Exapta, AX, which is now Dynamics 365, and we couldn't get into it. We couldn't build that organization. It wasn't in our DNA. We couldn't hire the right people. So we acquired this company, $1 million, got a loan from the bank for $1 million, acquired 16 people, solidly doing this product.
Okay.
Before that, we were struggling to get in there. We had a few people on our team. Once we did that, we were solidly on there. And I was telling people in 2012, right now, Great Plains is 85% of our revenue. It's going to go down to less than 10%.
Right.
And people couldn't imagine that. They couldn't fathom that. So we're going to grow the ERP and the CRM business, where Great Plains is going to be a much smaller part. So that was the first part. Then 2015, we acquired also a very fantastic acquisition. We acquired another 10, 12 people, a few $100,000 we paid. This company was divesting of that practice. And that grew our practice even more. So revenue-wise, I'll tell you where we're at, just because from about 2008, there was another crash, by the way, in 2007, 2008. That was the biggest recession we had in my lifetime.
Right.
It's still the biggest one. We forget about it now, but our whole economy could have tanked. I mean, we were really in a bad situation. They did a lot of stuff to restore the economy, but it was really, really difficult for us. So we stagnated around the $9-10 million revenue mark from 2007 to about 2012.
Sure.
2011, 2012. Then when we started making those acquisitions, we got to higher levels. So we got to 14 million, then we made another acquisition. We're up to 15 million in 2015. Then 2016, we acquired a CRM-only company. Same thing. We were trying to build that CRM team, but it wasn't our DNA. We knew ERP. We didn't know CRM. We tried, never got more than a few $100,000. Then we acquired a company that was doing 8-9 million in CRM. Added that to our company. So now we were doing 20 million, 21 million, 22 million. And that's really when we started the major growth. 2017, we had a little hiccup. We had to back off, do some layoffs. But 2018 was a great year. 2019 was a monumental year. Monumental. I mean, we knew all we had to do in 2019 was execute on all the stuff we sold in 2018,
Sure.
and we would have a top year.
Wow.
And we said, let's sell off of that year. You have to sell off of that year.
Right.
Once you have that top year, then you go to the market and say, what are you going to pay for us? So what the process is, you go to an investment banker. You find the right investment banker, and that's what they do. They help you sell your company. They help you market it. They go to all their leads. You give them who your leads are. And it was not a difficult process. It was actually a pretty solid process. So in 2019, we said, okay, we're going to hire an investment banker. We hired them and signed the contract in December. We closed our year 2019, top financials. We closed pretty much mid-January. We had financials. So let's start the process. So the process started in 2020. We went through it all, and we were thrilled at the offers we were getting. This was the top of the market. There was never a time to sell an ERP, CRM, software implementation company than in February of 2020.
And you got it at the perfect
The offers
time.
were getting absurd. They were getting so absurd that we were willing to actually sell to a company that we didn't think was even the right fit, but they were offering us ridiculous money. Why wouldn't we?
And were you staying at the company, whether or not that's in the agreement, that depends on the deal?
Yes, depends on the deal. So now we're in March of 2020.
Right.
It's when we're getting the real offers. And it's March 13th, 2020, and we were expecting bids to come in that week. That was a shutdown. That was when everything shut down.
Yeah.
So we didn't panic. We said, okay, what are we going to do? Are we going to stop the process, or are we going to go on? So if we stop the process, we're going to have a worse year than last year, and our valuation is going to go way down. We stick with the process. Wound up, 2 companies stayed in, but the offers came in much lower. They came in about 20% lower than we were expecting.
Oh, wow. Just after that 1 week even.
Just after that 1 week, valuations dropped by 20%. But we had 2 very good companies involved. One was a Big 4 accounting/technology firm, and one was a company, European-based, had a small U.S. practice, but not growing at all.
Okay.
They needed a real U.S. company, and we were doing $35 million in the U.S., and they said this is a perfect platform for us to build the U.S. business. But the other firm wanted us also, but the other firm's guy, who was like the guy who was in charge of acquisitions,
Okay.
was a hard negotiator, and he did them a very big disservice by the way he was negotiating. If we had gone that direction, which was I thought we were going that direction, they would give us good money. I would be a principal in a Big 4 technology firm. They would take me up, and they'd pay me very nicely, but they would have fired all of our admin, all of our, most of our salespeople, all of our marketing people, just kept the consultants and maybe a couple of salespeople. So they would have pretty much broken up the company. The other company said, we want you exactly the way you are. You become our U.S. company. In fact, we're going to fold in the U.S. company that we have. They're going to report to you. It's going to be like a reverse merger. Like I said, they're doing something like between 6 and 8 million. So you merge them into you, and then you run the U.S.
Got it.
And we're doing the exact same thing we were doing the day before. And they wound up having the best offer for us, and we went in that direction. Like I said, lower than we were getting bids in February, but still a very good number, excellent number for our type of company.
Right.
And that's what happened. We closed in August of 2020, and the next day I went right back to work doing the same stuff I was doing the day before, running the company the same way. But now we're part of a much larger company,
Right.
and we were able to invest more in strategic growth, so I stayed on for 4 years.
So until this year?
And my last day was July 31st.
Oh, wow.
And
It's August 23rd.
So we started. So what happened was when we were acquired, we were at 35 million. Let's say, right. So now we put this other company in with us. Maybe we're a $40 million company. 5 months later, we acquired another company in the U.S. Also similar size to what we were. So now we're an $80 million company. This year we should be doing 130 million in the U.S.
Wow.
Worldwide, they should be doing. I think they're doing 500 million globally.
Wow.
So it was 4 years. I think the time was the right time. I was happy to move on. They also wanted to bring in other people from. So they want to go to 500 million in the U.S. alone.
Sure.
And they want to bring in people from other companies that have done that kind of numbers before. They could say, hey, look, Jack and Alan, running the U.S., they could get us there, but you still have to sell that story to the private equity group.
Right.
Carlyle had bought into HSO in 2019. So Carlyle, one of the biggest private equity firms in the world, was the backer of HSO. They bought in 2019. They want to do another transaction. So most likely they're going to sell to another private equity firm. And you got to tell the story to the private equity firm. Say, hey, we're going to quadruple in the U.S., and here's how we're going to get there. So they tell a story. Oh, we're hiring this one from this one, and we hire it from this other company. And they're going to help us to get to that number. So I'm fine with that. I said, look, I've 4 years with HSO, excellent. Learned a lot, did a lot, but time for me to move on into other areas. And so that's where I'm at now.
Nice. So we touched on your story, which I have to say, a lot to learn from it. Very interesting to hear about your entire journey. I want to see how that translates into advice you might have for young people in terms of business, in terms of life advice, success, anything like that. So looking back at your career, what are some key principles in business that have stuck with you that you think have put you ahead?
So one thing is that when you are an entrepreneur, you usually start with something that you're skilled at. In my case, I was skilled at software development, technology, but when you want to become successful and go to the next level, your job description changes to something else completely. You are now a leader. You are now a company leader, and that's completely different than being a software engineer.
Right.
It's a complete different set of skills, and it's not. You can have some of that inherently part of, like, when you're growing up and you feel like you have leadership skills, but it's almost all learned, and you can learn it. And so you want to absorb as much of that as possible through however it is. I learned a lot from Great Plains Software and Microsoft, from mentors in that company. When I was in Vistage, I was learning from speakers about how to hire, how to run this kind of department, whatever it is. You always have to learn and become a completely different role. So that's one thing. You have to transition from one to another.
For sure.
I think that being an entrepreneur today is different than it was when I started, and I don't recommend it for everyone. In fact, my father's advice was, own your own business. That's the only way to do it. It's the only way you're going to make a lot of money and be your own boss. I don't tell that to my kids. To my kids, I say, learn something really well, do really well at it, and get your first job in that. So I would not have been able to start my company if I didn't get a first job working for someone else. So it's still, first thing is work for someone else and do it really well and learn as much as possible.
Sure.
So your first few years, I think the more you learn, the better. And opportunities will present themselves to do other things. I think it's just as lucrative these days to work in a large company in the U.S. and they pay very, very well, and get equity opportunities in that company, get promotional opportunities in that company, and you're getting paid really super well, and you're not making we're not struggling to make payroll, and you're not, you're doing something really well, and
Right.
you're not struggling to grow the business and hire everyone, and you've got people working for you, and you've got, you're building a great team, and you're getting a lot of satisfaction out of it. Not for everyone, but I think that's a very viable way to be very successful in this environment, in this economic environment.
Right. You were mentioning before, you have a passion and you turn that into a business, then all of a sudden you have to take on all these other roles. What you're saying reminds me of something I read in the E-Myth. I don't know if you ever read that. So it's basically a book about small businesses, how to run a business. And the author mentions that if you're turning your passion into a business, you have to assume 3 roles. You have to assume the engineer, right, the person who actually does the work, carries out the task, the manager, of managing admin work and the finances, the books, the accounting, and you have to be the salesperson, and you have to be all three of those. So I find it interesting how, so let's say you like making coffee and you want to open up a coffee shop. It adds all of these things into the equation that you may not have expected. So, how did you deal with that in the beginning?
Luckily I took well to finance and understanding financial statements, and I took that on early on. But I learned on the job. I knew nothing about it.
Right.
I remember like just trying to look. I was using Platinum software, which was the software we were selling, to run our own business. And I'm like setting up a general ledger. I didn't know what a general ledger was, and like I had to learn liabilities and equity and assets and what a P&L was, and I learned that. And I think that's really super important to run a business. Super important. And if you don't have that ability, you have to have someone on your team who you completely trust, who can do that for you.
Right.
I thought it was fun and interesting to run my company and run it on the software, and know the finances. But like I said in the beginning, I was doing everything. I posted everything. I posted every transaction. I printed all the checks. I printed all the invoices, sent them in the mail. It was like, and so you just have to take it day by day. Know that you're growing something. Know that you're learning all the time. And to me, when I'm learning, I'm in the flow. And
Right.
that's something that we talk about there's something called the flow state. When you do something that you really love, when you're doing it and you're really good at it and you're learning and growing, you're in the flow state. Those 10 or 11 hours you're working that day, they fly by, because you get into that. And that's one of the things you want to look for also. Like you said, find your passion, whatever it is, but find something that gets you into that flow state. And I was just talking about that with my son, who said he was doing something that was extra at work because he wanted to automate something so he could be doing it faster. And he did it, and he wrote these scripts, and he said those 9 hours went by like that, because he was in that state.
Right.
That's a good place to get into.
A lot of young adults nowadays, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, who just graduated high school, college, they're worried about, they might not know what they want to do, or if they know what they want to do, they don't think that we'll be able to bring in enough money. What do you say to these young people in terms of following your passion, but also making sure there's money coming in?
It's tough. I think it's very tough for people graduating, especially if they don't have a degree in something that they can actually get a job in, and they have to look for a job.
Right.
I think it's one of the most difficult times in life. I think when they're doing studies on stress and happiness,
Sure.
the mid-20s is the most stressful time in life, because you're graduating from school, so you're not being taken care of, and you're not being spoon-fed, whatever it is, and you've got to find your place, and you've got to make money, and you're thinking about having a family, and I think the key is you want to minimize your stress as much as possible. It's going to work out. For centuries we've gone through this, and
Right.
we've somehow made it. Keep on learning, keep on networking. You got to build that business network. I'm a big fan of LinkedIn, by the way, huge fan. I think it's the way we're building our business networks in the future. A lot of things to learn there, and you got to just be persistent. And you got to you got to pray every day. It's going to happen. God hears all your prayers, and you're going to be successful, and you're going to get the right job. But you have to know that you deserve it. You have to be persistent. You have to go along the path. And once you start making money, you give away 10%. From day one, you give away 10%. And that's going to help you grow.
Love it.
And I tell everyone, if anyone asks me for advice and they're making their way in the world, you're giving 10%, you got to give your 10%. Because that's really how you're going to grow.
Love it, for sure. So, shifting gears a little bit to community involvement. I know you're very involved in a lot of community organizations, and you're a synagogue. So, tell me, briefly what you're involved in and why is it so important to you?
I started, again, giving from not so early in my career. I learned more about it, and then I started saying, hey, I got to start doing this. And
Right.
and when I started doing it, again, things started growing as I explained. The things I'm mainly involved with are the school Hillel. From an early age, when my kids were young, I was on the board. I still give a lot to Hillel. It's a very important institution. I give and my shul, Larchwood Shul, is a very, very important part of my life, huge part of my life. And I give to the shul. And I give to a bunch of organizations, and that's, I'm proud to do that. And I was always looking for what is the one I'm going to work on that's going to be like, that's the one, when people are going and raising money for it.
Yeah.
And it never really, nothing ever struck me. I want to help the shul, and I was involved with the school for many years, but as my kids graduated, I was less involved. I wanted to turn on with the next generation. And then AIPAC came to the shul. AIPAC was coming to Larchwood Shul. It was coming during the week. This woman was going to come speak about it, and I was traveling. I was actually at a Microsoft thing in Seattle, and I told my wife Debbie, listen what they're saying, and buy whatever they're selling. AIPAC, I know AIPAC, and I know that they're a great organization. I know them since I'm in college. I know that they had a lot of influence in Congress, and that's us. Like, my wife is huge, like Zionist Israel. Like, her brother lives there. She's following the news every minute. She follows the news more than I do, and I'm a big news person. And I said, this is going to be our thing. I can tell. She goes there. She calls me when I'm in Washington and says, okay, there's this policy conference in March next month. They want to sign us up. I said, all right, sign us up. I go to the policy conference. I said, this is what I'm going to get involved.
What year was this?
2019.
Got it.
I was like, this is it. This is a game changer for me. This is what I'm going to get involved with. I told right away this Jackie Ashkenazi, who runs the political network along with Frida Franco, and they were involved for a very long time. I said, I'm going to be the deal guy, and I'm going to be heavily involved. I'm going to be side by side with you in AIPAC. I said, I love it. Thank you. And since then, it's been a major passion of ours. I go to D.C. a few times a year. I lobby our congressman. I have a specific congressman that I'm involved with from Tennessee. I'm his AIPAC connection. I educate him and his team on the issues.
That's very cool.
He stayed over my house last week or 2 weeks ago. He stayed over my house. I met 40 people from the community, spoke with them, and I'm texting him whenever there's a bill to be. So this last AIPAC, very huge. You have to understand the ROI on your investment in AIPAC. Great organizations we have in the community, all tax deductible. AIPAC is not tax deductible. You give to AIPAC, not tax deductible, and so it's 30% more than you're giving to others for the same amount of money. But AIPAC just got $14.3 billion of supplemental aid to Israel a couple of months ago. The bill was passed.
Amazing.
And that's on top of the $3.8 billion the U.S. gives to Israel every year.
Right.
And AIPAC has been on top of that and ensuring that happens year after year. And when by the way, when Iron Dome and David Sling protected Israel from the 400 missiles coming from Iran and drones, you had top members of the Israel military thanking AIPAC for Iron Dome and for this technology, because AIPAC was spearheading all the funding for these things and educating everyone in Congress about it. And so, to me, doing that work, and what happened was this congressman from Tennessee, great supporter of Israel, but the Republicans and Democrats were playing games with this funding. We needed from October we needed this funding, and it took them till March or something to even get the bill passed.
Right.
And the Republicans were on the fence. They were saying, there's $9 billion of aid in there, and there's $2 billion of aid to Gaza, and we don't want that aid in there. And they were like playing with we were like, we need this thing passed. So they called me, AIPAC called me and said, look, you got to get on with your congressman, he's on the fence. And I'm texting him, I'm sending him information about, and he wound up voting yes for it.
That's great.
And they thanked me and said, look, we might not have gotten that bill passed. You were doing your job.
That's so cool.
For AIPAC.
That's so cool. You're making a difference.
Yeah, so
that's awesome.
That was a great thing.
So we went over your story, community involvement. First of all, thank you for coming on again. I really appreciate it.
A lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, it's a good time. And anything else you want to tell the community, youth in particular, young people?
So I grew up going to public school, and my parents were part of the community from early on. My father was part of the community from when everyone knew everyone. That's literally what he said.
Right.
He fought in World War II. My father he was on a Navy ship bound to Japan when they dropped the bomb. And so, but at the same time, it had its issues. You know, in the 70s and 80s, it was very materialistic and very competitive, and I don't know. It was not great values, but look, seemed that there was some. I appreciated it. And then when I moved I moved to New Jersey in 1991. We bought our house and moved in, and we were part of it. We got slowly more and more part of the community.
Sure.
Now I'm solidly in it, and I think it's the most amazing community. And I'm saying it from a different perspective. I was not in it tremendously, and I had a lot of issues with it growing up, but I see it for what it is, and it's incredible. There's nothing like it on the planet. There's nothing like this community on the entire planet. And what I'm saying as part of this thing and to the youth is, you may have some hard times with this, the tuition bills and the crazy stuff and the competitiveness and anxiety over how you're going to live and raise a family, but it's truly incredible. It's a story of how abundance is unlimited. So if you feel like, how's this going to happen? There's only so much out there and other people are going to make it. I'm not going to make it. No, we can all be successful. We can all have abundance in our lives. We have tremendous resources around us, and be proud of it. Help it to grow. Be part of it. Leverage it in business, and it's a source of tremendous. The relationships alone. The part of the problem in the world now is that people they're not in relationships. People are working from home. They're working at their computer. They meet 3 people in a year. I mean, you hear people talking about it all the time.
Yeah.
They are lacking relationships, and humans need relationships. And we have 75 to 100,000 people in this community, and it is so good for us to have those relationships. It's good for our health. It's good for our mental health. It's good for our making a living. It's great for our kids. It's great. It's a tremendous stuff, and I'm extremely proud to be a part of it. And that's what's gotten us talking here.
That's right. And on that note, the community is just amazing. In the research and the outreach that I've done to look for podcast guests, I just have a huge list of tens of people who would be great. And I'm talking with my father, and this person would be great, and that person would be great. And there's so many people, and so many people are willing to, share their insight, their advice. And it's amazing to see, really amazing.
I'm looking forward to listening to some of the other ones.
Sure.
I'll be a big fan of those podcasts.
I'll send you a link. You got it. All right. Listen, thank you for coming on, Jack. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Awesome.
Keep on doing the good work.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Momentum. Jack shared amazing lessons about what it truly takes to succeed, like the importance of hiring people who are better than you to scale your business, why donating 10% of your earnings from day one can change everything, personally and professionally. He also drove home the idea that success comes from persistence, whether it's sending out countless resumes, navigating tough economic times like 9/11, 2008, and COVID, or sacrificing personal milestones. I mean, Jack missed weddings. He missed the weddings of his friends to achieve long-term goals. If you enjoyed this episode, you would love my conversation with Avi Hulu. That episode is pretty much a masterclass in overcoming setbacks and obstacles. Avi lost his entire business, even going tens of millions of dollars in the negative, and he built it all back and then some. Avi now runs iBuy, one of the world's leading electronics distributors. You can find that episode on any platform, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, by searching Momentum Avi Hulu. Let me know what you think about that one. Before I go, in case you didn't know, Momentum is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and pretty much every other podcast platform. You can find the link to each platform on our website, themomentumpodcast.com. Again, that's themomentumpodcast.com. Also, just check it out. It's a pretty cool website. I made it myself. Let me know what you think. With that said, thank you again for watching. Please be sure to subscribe, rate the show 5 stars. That really helps a lot. And share with a friend. Oh, and also, leave a comment. I'm almost getting too rich, too famous to respond to the comments. So now's your chance. Leave a comment. I would love to hear from you. In all seriousness, thank you for watching. Until next time.